Hey guys, this is Laura from Keynnect. Today, we're going to unpack the powerful and honestly kind of invisible forces that are driving up the cost of, well, just about everything you buy. And it all comes down to the journey those goods take to get to you. I mean, think about it. Your morning coffee, that new laptop, a huge chunk of its final price tag comes from the costs of shipping. And right now, that journey is getting a lot more expensive. So let's break down exactly why. Okay, so to really get what's happening in the freight market, you've got to know this one crucial metric, the load-to-truck ratio. You can just think of it as supply and demand in its purest form. When this number goes up, it means shippers are scrambling to find a truck. And you guessed it, that's when prices really start to climb. So, if we pull back and look at the whole country, the story is pretty clear. Things are getting tight out there. The demand for shipping is on the rise, but the number of available trucks, it's just not keeping up. And this is the key takeaway at the national level. You know, for the first time in a long time, we're actually seeing the numbers, both for loads and for prices, climb higher than they were this time last year. Let's dig in and see how this is playing out across the different kinds of trucks that keep our economy humming. Right, so this whole big picture trend is really a tale of three key players you see out on the road: the dry van, the reefer, and the flatbed. And each one tells a really unique part of the story. First up, we've got the dry van. You know the one, the classic boxy trailer you see everywhere. It's the absolute workhorse of the industry, moving the majority of consumer goods, everything from electronics to clothes. And it really sets the stage for the pressure we're seeing across the whole market. Demand for these workhorses is just surging. Get this, in just the last week, the number of available loads for dry vans, we call them load postings, is up a massive 32% compared to this time last year. And that surge in demand, it translates directly to our key metric. The load-to-truck ratio for dry vans has shot up to 6.7. That means there are almost 7 loads out there competing for every single available truck. All that competition, well, it hits the price tag. The average spot rate for a van is now $1.67 per mile. Now, 4 cents might not sound like a lot, but after months and months of falling rates, this is a huge turnaround. Okay, now let's talk about the refrigerated trucks, or as everyone in the biz calls them, reefers. If you thought the dry van market was tight, the reefer story is even more dramatic. We're talking about everything that has to stay cold, from your groceries to medicines. And here, demand has just absolutely exploded. Load postings have jumped an incredible 44% year over year. A lot of that is being driven by late summer harvests and that pre-Labor Day rush to get everything stocked up in the grocery stores. So that massive spike in demand sends the reefer ratio soaring to 12.7. Think about that for a second. Vans had 7 loads per truck. Reefers have almost 13. It's just a whole different level of intensity. So no surprise here, this has pushed the national average reefer rate up to $2.04 a mile. And just like with vans, that's higher than last year, which just confirms this tightening trend is happening all over. And finally, we've got the flatbed. These are the open deck trailers, the real heavy lifters for things like construction and energy. And they tell a completely different story. This isn't some seasonal surge. This is just relentless, sustained pressure. Okay, this is where the numbers just get wild. The flatbed load-to-truck ratio is a staggering 21.3. Let that sink in. It's more than triple the ratio for dry vans. This isn't just tight. This is a market where there is a chronic shortage of trucks for all the specialized stuff that needs moving. And because of that sustained pressure, flatbed rates are now a full 10 cents higher than they were a year ago. They've stayed consistently hot because of that relentless demand from construction and energy. All right, so that's the national picture of rising costs. But you know, these trends can look incredibly different when you get down on the ground. To really see what I mean, let's zoom in and compare 2 key states: Florida and Texas. And what we see here is it's a fascinating contrast. Florida's freight market is a story of seasonal peaks and valleys. It really depends on the type of truck. Texas, on the other hand, is a story of widespread, robust, and just consistent activity. So, earlier this summer, Florida was a total hotbed for reefers because of produce season. But now that the harvest is wound down, the market has completely flipped. Big hubs like Miami and Jacksonville are now considered cold for dry vans, meaning there are way too many trucks and not enough loads. But at the same time, some of that reefer demand is still strong, which just goes to show you how segmented a market can be even within one state. And then you've got Texas, which is just firing on all cylinders. It's a national hotspot for flatbed freight, thanks to nonstop construction and energy projects. But unlike Florida, the demand is also really strong for dry vans and reefers, driven by retail and a ton of imports from Mexico. So yeah, capacity is tight, but it's a much more balanced and consistently strong market right across the board. But this isn't just about the supply of trailers or the demand for goods. There's a new regulatory change that's directly impacting the most critical piece of the whole supply chain, the drivers themselves. So far this year, 1,212 commercial drivers have been placed out of service. That means immediately taken off the road. And not for a mechanical problem or a driving violation, but because of a recently reinstated rule about language proficiency. So here's the crucial point. Federal regulators have brought back a rule that makes English proficiency an out-of-service violation. So during a roadside inspection, if an officer decides a driver can't meet this standard, that driver is immediately sidelined. This is actively and directly removing drivers from the available pool. Okay, let's tie this all together. What do we have? We have rising demand for shipping across every major truck type. We have a tightening supply of those trucks, pushing costs higher than last year. We're seeing that these conditions look wildly different from state to state, and then on top of all that, a new regulatory focus is actively shrinking the number of available drivers on the road. All of these forces are converging, and they're creating real upward pressure on prices. And that leads us with a pretty critical question for the economy as we look ahead. When the cost to move literally everything goes up, what gets squeezed next?